Good evening, students. This is a brief tutorial video on memory and information processing, which covers Chapter 8, the key concepts that we have discussed. And following this presentation, you are to complete the 10-question multiple choice quiz that is based on the video. So pay careful attention and listen closely. Try to grasp the concepts. Now, what are our learning goals and objectives for this presentation? We're going to define memory and information processing systems, define short-term memory, which is also known as working memory. We're going to define the types of memory, such as episodic, semantic, and procedural memories, as well as what flashbulb memories are. We're going to explain the neuroscience of memory, the brain processes and structures involved in memory, how the brain organizes memories, explain lost memories, amnesia, and the various types, define and give examples of eyewitness memory and testimony and the significance of that. And finally, we'll discuss mnemonics, which are those little memory tricks that help us learn information. How is memory defined? Well, it is our ability to store information. And there are three processes involved in memory. First, there's encoding, which is getting information into our memory system. Automatically, you take in information, and sometimes without being aware of it. Example, you probably can remember where you ate lunch yesterday, or even what you ate for lunch, even though you didn't try to remember this information. Then other information is taken in only if you pay attention to it. For example, college students, you probably won't remember all of the information in your textbook unless you're paying close attention to it and you want to retrieve it later while you're reading it. Then there is storage. After you take the information into the brain, it has to be stored, maintained, and there it is processed, and then decide what needs to be done with the information once you get it in. And so we'll talk about the memory system, sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory on the next slide. Now, Atkin and Shiffrin came up with a model called a multi-store model, as you see here in this diagram at the top right. Here you have the environmental input, which is that sensory. We're taking in the memory to our sensories. And once here, it stays in a very short period of time. Most of the time, we forget that. We forget it if it doesn't quickly move into a storage area called short-term memory, where it's maintained, it's processed, it's sorted out, and then it's often lost because there's a very unlimited amount of time where this information is stored and kept. Then, while it's being processed, it goes through the long-term memory, which is that permanent storage, where you either forget that which is not important, or you keep that information which is important where you can retrieve it for later. The bottom here, you see human memory types. And we'll discuss these in detail in the next slide. In the sensory memory, the short-term, the long-term, explicit, implicit, declarative, procedural, and episodic, and semantic memories. In the bottom, on the left diagram, you see where memory is compared to a central processing unit. Well, when you put in data into your laptops, your PC processors, you input it, which is the input. Then you store it into your hard drive. And then it goes into your long-term memory drive, where you can go back and you can retrieve that data for later usage. So it is analogous to how our own human memory systems work. Now, let's talk about types of long-term memories. Explicit versus implicit memory. Explicit memory is the type of memory Explicit memory is that type of memory where you have the conscious, intentional remembering of information. You have to put forth an effort. Remembering a social security number, remembering a telephone number, remembering your driver's license number. This is effortful. You must put forth the effort to retrieve this information. That is explicit memory. It is a type of declarative memory. Implicit memory is a type of non-declarative memory where it's unconscious retention of information. You don't have to put forth the effort to remember the information. Example, Tina once visited a hotel, California, with her parents when she was 10 years old. She may not remember ever having been there, but when she makes a trip there later, she knows exactly how to get to the swimming pool. Well, this type of memory, she didn't try to remember it, but once she got there, she remembered her environment. If you go to a theme park, such as Six Flags, when you were little, maybe you don't remember going. But when mom takes you there years later, or you go on your own, you remember how to get to that roller coaster. Declarative versus procedural memory. It is also a type of declarative memory. Recall of factual information such as remembering a date, certain words. You can remember certain faces, events, and certain concepts. Example, remembering the capital of France, the rules for playing football, and what happened in the last game of the World Series. All of this is declarative memory. It is considered to be explicit memory because it involves conscious, intentional remembering. By contrast, procedural memory is recall of how to do something, which is a type of non-declarative memory. Swimming, driving a car is called implicit because people don't have to consciously remember how to perform action or skill. Semantic versus episodic memory. Semantic memory is the recall of facts. Remembering the capital of France and the rules for playing the game is also a type of explicit declarative memory. Episodic memory, recall of personal facts. Remembering what happened in the last World Series. Flashback memories. These are memories of circumstances that were emotional or had some significant event in your life that you will never forget, such as the memory of the events of 9/11. But is this memory accurate? Maybe. Being in a horrible tornado, involved in a hurricane. Those are episodes, episodic memories. And there are many other examples we could give. Why do we forget? There is a process called decay, a theory that memory fades with time, and also explains the memories from sensory and short-term memory. We lose information if it is not stored for retrieval. It fades away. Loss of long-term memory does not depend on how much time has gone by since the information was learned. Retroactive interference is another reason theorists say we forget. When we are constantly learning new things, these new memories compete or they interfere with the recovery of old memories because we just can't recall a lot of the old things because we got a lot of new things. By contrast, proactive interference Old memories interfere with the recovery of new memories. We can't remember the new things we learned because we're still holding on to those old memories. So why do we forget? Through decay, retroactive interference, and proactive interference. Retrieval and recall. Now, retrieval is a process of getting information out of memory. This is that long-term storage where the information has been transferred from the working memory into the long-term memory store where it has been consolidated and we decide what needs to be retrieved. Retrieval cues are stimuli that help the process of retrieval, and it includes associations, which is recalling a particular word that becomes easier if another related word is recalled first, such as priming. This is called priming. In context, we remember events by placing ourselves in the same context we were in when the event happened. If we were there at 9/11 and we see pictures or we watch movies, then we remember that because we were there. It's almost as if we were there all over again. If we're in the same mood when we were doing an event, we may have an easier time recalling that event. Being upset during a tornado reminds you that when you were in that tornado, how you felt at the same time. Through associations, context, and mood is how we recall events. Now, the neuroscience of memory. There are certain brain structures that are involved in our memory processings, and the limbic system is mostly involved in that. If you recall, the cerebrum is divided into several lobes, and certain parts of the cerebrum are responsible for certain parts of our functions. So the hippocampus is essential to formation of new memories. Now, the hippocampus goes around the thalamus. This is the thalamus, and then it goes underneath the thalamus. And it runs behind and underneath it, and this aids in the formation of new memories. The amygdala, the dark blue or purple structure, is also a part of the limbic system that aids in memories, and it also helps regulate our emotions. So when we learn information, one way we learn is through categorization. How the brain organizes or categorizes information. And it organizes in a coherent way or some logical way that help us remember, such as categorizing in groups or organizing material hierarchically or categorizing and subcategorizing can be helpful, such as living things and non-living things, plants, animals, bacteria, fungi, protists. And we can also subcategorize each one of these again: types of plants, types of animals, types of bacteria, types of fungus, and types of protists. The categories, living things, we've categorized, and then we subcategorize them. We could do the same thing with non-living things: water, soil, light, minerals, and air, categorized as non-living things, and they can also be subcategorized. We also use Venn diagrams, and you learn to use Venn diagrams when you were in elementary, middle school, where you had certain items placed in one area, certain items placed in the other area. They were alike and they were different, and then you had that common area where they joined together in the middle where there were common characteristics. This is categorizing using Venn diagrams. Autobiographical memories has to do with amnesia in our childhood, memory of events that individual has experienced, our life experiences, and we can use them to analyze and learn who we are. more about ourselves. Sometimes we do this to impress other people. May or may not be true. Most of us as adults cannot recall or remember events earlier than the third or fourth year of life. Many claim they can remember earlier than that, and possibly so. And then when we don't want to remember something that is painful, that was hurtful in our childhood, we repress them unconsciously. We put them into our unconscious because they're too painful to remember, and we don't want to remember them. Now let's talk about amnesia, which is forgetting that is caused by physical problems in the brain, such as those induced by injury and disease. Physical injury or trauma. Retrograde amnesia is the ability to remember events that occur before an injury or traumatic event, such as being in an automobile accident and you had head trauma. All you know is you woke up in the hospital and you could remember what happened or got you there. Then the anterograde amnesia, which is just the opposite of retrograde amnesia, is the inability to remember events that occur after an injury or after the traumatic event. You can't remember anything after the accident. You can't form any new memories. So this is retrograde amnesia and anterograde amnesia. Let's talk about eyewitness testimony and false memories. So it's reporting of events that you witness or experience. You can see, everybody can see the same accident on the street, and everybody will have a different account of what they said happened in the accident. Here are other examples. For example, children are asked to report events that have happened in the context of abuse cases or custody hearings. A lot of times, children are given all of these prompts to get them to talk about what happened. Tell me more about that. And younger children are highly influenced by all of these implied questions, events that may or may not have happened, but something to suggest to them that they probably or did happen. But unfortunately, they keep asking them these repeated questions over and over, and of course it increases errors and they don't know. They become confused. And a lot of times eyewitness testimony helps to decide the innocence of guilt of the individual. So eyewitness testimonies are not reliable in the courtroom among juries. Mnemonics. Finally, we talk about mnemonics. These are those little special tricks that help people think about material in ways to help improve their memory. So when you were in school, you probably learned this little mnemonic to help you learn the 5 great lakes. HOMES. Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. Then at the bottom, you probably learned this one to help learn the colors of the rainbow. Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, blue, and violet. They help you learn the colors of the rainbow. Then we have one final familiar mnemonic for those of you who may be musicians, learn to play instruments, read music, play piano. They help you learn the keys on the grand staff. For the treble, you learn FACE. For the treble spaces. For the bass, you learn ACE, all cows eat grass. And for the bass, you learn EGBDF for the lines. And for you learn good boys do fine always, or good burritos don't fall apart, and I didn't learn this one. So in other words, these mnemonics actually help you learn the notes on the grand staff. And we all learn, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, to help us learn the order of the operations to perform in any algebraic expression. So These are just little mnemonic little tricks. And these are not all. There are many more little mnemonics that we discuss in class. Any questions? Bring your questions to class and we'll discuss them. Complete your 10-question multiple choice quiz.